I never intended on being part of this documentary. I guess I just can't continue to ask people to open up about addiction and feel like a hypocrite staying quiet. But before I tell you about Saginaw, Michigan and our struggle with addiction, I must first tell you a little about myself. My name is Luka Jubina. I was born in Legnica, Poland during the communist occupation. It was also known as Little Moscow. Contrary to popular belief, David Hasselhoff didn't tear down the Berlin Wall. After 9 months in a refugee camp in Austria, my grandparents and my mom immigrated to the United States and moved into a house on Wiesner on Saginaw's east side. It was the mid-1980s, and this is what was going on in America. Cocaine in nightclubs, McGruff the crime dog telling kids not to do drugs.
That may be the last time you'll see Jenny.
And a little country we had forgotten about called Afghanistan. A place where America and the Soviet Empire had continued fighting a Cold War for over 30 years. And so while the rest of the US blew their hard-earned dollars up their nostrils to shitty 80s music,
fly away in my space rocket. You no need put money in my pocket.
And responsible parents spent their money on My Little Pony and Hulk Hogan.
I don't believe it! I'm dropping a big load!
Police officers visited schools and tried to indoctrinate a no-drugs policy. We did our little civic duty. We pledged allegiance and danced through all the other good government bullshit in hopes of one day getting into college, having a career, and doing all the other things we were told were important. But none of us understood we were also being indoctrinated into a drug culture.
Hij heeft me heel plus tax.
It had been killing our celebrities for years, but that would never happen to us. All we knew was that it was cool.
I've been smoking since I was born, man. I could smoke anything, man.
And we wanted to be a part of it.
What cigarette do you smoke, Doctor? Once again, the brand named most was Camel. Yes, according to this repeated nationwide survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette.
There's no question, I think, that our society is drug-oriented.
For headaches, Tylenol is recommended the most by doctors.
If you have a simple headache, you're taking Tylenol, you're taking an ibuprofen, you're doing something to try to remediate that from a drug perspective.
Specially developed to break the trouble triangle. A half-empty stomach causes hunger tantrums. Now you can avoid hunger tantrums, lose weight naturally and fast.
So if you're not saving that coupon, I'll take it. Oh, no, you don't. I'll just keep the coupon.
Raleigh coupons, good for free gifts.
We'll have the newspaper guys, the magazine fellas, the radio, the newsreel. When that curtain goes down on your opening night, you're gonna hear a noise that'll shake that friggin' place. See, hold him while I get the key.
Give us the key. The key. I need the key.
Alcohol, we know prohibition doesn't work, but people rely on it to wash feelings away. I have clients that will use drugs like, Xanax or lorazepam to try to cover up their feelings, which then interferes with the therapy process.
I went to the doctor this morning. I went to behavioral health, and I was there from 9 to 10, and they sent me to the psychiatrist immediately, and I walked out with 4 different medications. One for depression, one for nightmares, one for anxiety, and one for post-traumatic stress disorder.
Every fucking doctor in town is trying to push some methadone or Suboxone or some shit, which is synthetic heroin anyways.
I made it very clear to them that I am a recovering addict, and I don't know. I mean, I'm really nervous about taking them.
But we've been accustomed to always implementing a drug as a mechanism of trying to change things.
Fast, each and every moment, get what you want, it just works out like that. Think fast, hold back, these moments fade out.
Unfortunately, I was unsurprised, and I've just been really struck by the prevalence of heavy drug use among extremely young people whenever I've traveled through Michigan. And as a festival DJ and an electronic music scene, which a lot of people would say is all about drugs, I've seen a lot of drug use, but it's not the same intensity or the same drugs.
I've always done pills, smoked weed. Got to be 18, I did my first line of cocaine. After that, I didn't really do it too much, and a few years later, I started selling big amounts of marijuana, 20, 40 pounds of weed a week, and I had a Mexican connection in my family, so.
Who taught you how to do this stuff?
You, all right? I learned it by watching you.
My dad was a drug addict, and first time I ever seen drugs was in my house. I was probably 8 years old.
All of a sudden they brought the cocaine out, started selling cocaine and doing cocaine, staying up for days at a time, and my deal was, it was instead of heroin and pills like that. I've always done that stuff, but my forte was more cocaine and speed. I like to go fast.
At a festival, people are drinking and doing drugs, but they're a little bit lighter, and that's sort of their playtime, and then they go back to their 9 to 5 and their regular. But when I go to Michigan, I tend to see kids more where that heavy drug use, it's stuff like heroin, and it's part of their lifestyle, and they're 20, 21, and it's really shocking to me.
This shit was created to have fun, you know what I'm saying? It's not meant to control you.
By the time I got to high school, I was already into it and past that point. I was introduced to them. They were around, and I wasn't stupid.
On me right off the bat because I liked it so much. I liked the escape. That's what it provided. I hated my life. I hated myself. Didn't like me at all. And I just wanted a break from that. I didn't want to feel any of that.
Mixing like a crazy rack of Adderall, ketamine,
shrooms, LSD, ecstasy, mescaline,
maybe cocaine, a couple of other things.
Ketamine. Black tar, red rock opium, moved to the cocaine, the freebasing.
It was different. It was like they weren't just trying to get high, they were trying to get obliterated. They were trying to lose their minds and get over that line that they couldn't even come back from.
All the pills you could imagine, from Xanax to Oxys to morphine to, it all led down to crack and heroin.
You may not understand this. I don't either.
Obama is a Mac Daddy. Obama pimps white women and black women.
A vow of faith has got to take faith. That's why I say $1,000.
He got started. You didn't notice him till he brought out those big-chested white women with their tight T-shirts and their short pants. That's what a pimp does.
If you want to stop somebody from doing drugs, you don't bring drug-free Christians in. You bring the junkiest junkies of the junk on the street. Those are the guys I'm going to listen to.
Why? Why can't I have my baby? I just need me a hit, girl. Give me $5.
Wouldn't you agree? Who has a right to talk to me about my addiction if they've never been through it?
Obama is a long-legged Mac Daddy.
I'm the son of a preacher. My brother is too. Our real father left when we were 7, 8 years old. You know, the no daddy syndrome, I would say, runs definitely heavy in my family. And, you know, and believe it or not, he's still a minister to this day. Haven't spoke with him in years. He pretty much, last time I really spent any time with him, I was probably 11 years old. I can actually tell you when the switch turned on in my head that I'm rebelling. I was a good kid up until about 12, 13 years old. One summer I had been mowing lawns, and I really liked Van Halen had come out with OU812 album, and Poison Open Up and Say Hi. I went to Rockarola, which was down the street from my house, and I bought those 2 cassette tapes. And I was so proud to come home and listen to those tapes. And I bought them with my own money. And my mom, even, you know, obviously she married a preacher in the first place. Now, they got divorced because he was running around on her with all ladies from the church. Yeah, if you're a minister, you can get laid really easy at church.
Look, she bending over. Lord have mercy. The Lord is my shepherd. He know what I want. Excuse me, brother. Miss Parker! Miss Parker! Can I talk to you for a minute, Miss Parker?
She hears me playing the Poison album in my bedroom, you know, and I'm minding my own business. I'm a good kid. And she comes in and she says, "What is that music you're listening to?" And I'm like, "I just bought these tapes." You know, she picks them up.
I'm not responsible for it. I'm just trying to show you how no good you are.
She picked that thing up and she says, "I don't want this in my house. This is not, this is unacceptable." And she grabs the tape out of my stereo and busts it up in front of me. It's the first day I got it. Reaches over, grabs the OU812. I didn't even put it in to listen to it yet. And she says, "This is garbage too.
You are wicked! You are wicked!"
You know, Van Halen, blah, blah, blah. This is the devil's music. I mean, I can't remember everything she spouted out. But break, 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 snap, snap. And that moment, that is when the switch went off. I instantly looked up at her and I said, "I cannot believe that you just disrespected me like that." And I believe I said it like that too.
The more I think about it, the more my addiction led to when I was young, you know, because there was a point where, this used to be Kessel's up here and whatever, Giant before that. And I used to steal, and I'd go in there and ask my mom for something, and if she wouldn't get it, as soon as we got home, I'd hop on my bike, ride back there and go steal it.
And she's like, "This is my house and my rules." And I didn't, you know, in my opinion, really, I didn't deserve it because I wasn't a troubled kid. I didn't have bad grades in school. I wasn't caught smoking cigarettes at this point. None of that stuff. After that day, you better believe it. You know, it's when I started not caring what I said to my parents. You know, I flip them off and...
You punk!
Evangelicals have the best sex life of any other group.
I mean, there's nothing worse than, you know, meeting a girl and you think she's great, and all of a sudden, you know, you have some relations and you end up with a mush growing on your tongue, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I try to tell people, lasers on Star Wars are not as fun as lasers at the doctors when you're getting things burnt off.
No, they're not. First of all, you didn't look like a normal high school kid. You looked older. I mean, you've always looked older, so to speak. And we had a reputation that you and I got along pretty good, and somewhere in our conversation, apparently you found out that I enjoyed drinking Absolute vodka. And I can remember towards, I think it was the last day of school, you walked in here and you set a fifth on my desk and said, "Here," and I went, "Whoa." Well, first of all, you can't have that. And second of all, how did you get this? And you said, "Hey, do you think somebody wouldn't sell to me because of the way you looked?" And I went, "I can't accept this bottle from you. I mean, I've gotten thank you cards and cards to come to people's graduation, but I've never had a kid set a fifth of Absolute on my desk before." So I talked to my bosses about it, because we're not supposed to accept gratuities in any way. And I said, hey, what am I going to do with this fifth of absolute? He says, my chief said, get rid of it. So I got rid of it.
Plus, you scratch our backs, we'll scratch yours.
Well, Jules, the funny thing about my back is that it's located on my cock.
There doesn't seem to be a bigger gap that I have found in life than being in high school. I mean, you got 13, 14-year-olds hanging with 18-year-olds. And the maturity level of the 18 and 13-year-olds is a big difference.
Don't move.
Why it is, I don't know, but it's usually 8th graders coming into the 9th grade. Maturity level isn't there yet. Kids want to be cool going into the 9th grade, into high school. They don't want to be seen as nerds or anything else, so they want to be shown as cool. So they get a boyfriend or a girlfriend, and the boyfriend always seems to say, send me a nude picture of yourself. I won't show anyone. Well, come on. He's a 9th grader. He's an 8th grader. He's going to show it as soon as he gets it.
Well, I mean, this level of invincibility, I think, is part of adolescent development. The brain is developing because it's not a linear model of development. It's, for every 2 steps you take forward in terms of brain development in the adolescence, you take 1 backwards. So it's always a very interesting challenge to watch children go through particular growth spurts and watch them take steps forward and then going backwards. I can remember with my own children, them going out and buying, a 17 magazine along with a Little Mermaid coloring book. This back and forth issue as they continue to develop into adulthood. But that invincibility, causes them to take greater risks.
All right, Corky. You did it. Terrific.
So the young lady sends him a nude picture of herself. Now, what I found is mainly 8th grade girls, 9th grade girls that'll take these pictures. You don't find your 10, 11, and 12th grade girls taking pictures of themselves because they've reached a maturity level that they know that this is not the right thing to do. And when girls take pictures of themselves, they'll stand in the mirror in the bathroom and take a full-length picture of themselves, so there they are. Boys will take a camera and take a picture from waist down. Well, why don't the boys get prosecuted? I can't tell who they are. You want me to go into gym class with the picture and go, is that him? Is that him? Is that him?
We've worked together. We've played together. I'd like to think we've learned together.
Where girls, you're standing in front of the mirror. But what the kids don't realize is the boy asking for that picture has just committed a felony. He's soliciting child pornography. And if the girl sends it to him, she's guilty of distribution of child pornography.
Grease is cool.
I guess sometimes teenage pregnancies, okay? Yeah, you really like the guy. Yeah, you really like the girl. And the next thing you know, you create another human being. Then you break up with him.
Take a hike, Becca.
And now we're not together anymore. But yes, you are. You're linked for the rest of your lives. There's no getting around it. You're linked. So even if the girl doesn't like you anymore or the guy doesn't like you anymore and you break up or something like that, you still have your child.
When I was 14, I had gotten what I know now was molested, and I got pregnant, and I gave a baby up for adoption. And when I had gotten sent away to Boston for that. When I came back, I was in high school at Arthur Hill, and it sucked because all my friends wanted to know where my baby was. And I started using to, I guess, ease the pain. I mean, my dad was I didn't have anybody, you know, and that's what started me with like hardcore cocaine.
Ah, it's Coke! Yes! All right, we got him! This is great! Oh, this is the rush I've been looking for. Good work, Brian. You still got a little, Oh, thanks.
The sex that's happening in high schools now, it wasn't anything like it was when I was growing up. It seems to be, and I had a hard time with that, being the police officer in the school, listening to all these kids saying, well, yeah, I have sex with this person and stuff. And it's like nonchalant, like, yeah, so what? No big deal.
Call him Bill Ladies Man Clinton.
I want you to listen to me. I'm going to say this again. I did not have sexual relations with that woman, Miss Lewinsky.
You're despicable. No honor, no integrity. If a man, while I'm not in favor of Bill Clinton, but if a man has done for you as much as he has done, and then for you to trash him the way you are trashing him, makes you less than a maggot.
Їхали козаки із дому до дому, підманули Галю, забрали з собою. Ой, ми Галю, Галю молодая, підманули Галю, забрали з собою. Ой, поїдем, Галю, з нами козаками, краще тобі буде, чим у рідної мами. Ой, ми Галю, Галю молодая, краще тобі буде, чим у рідної мами.
I want to say it started in high school with the drinking and the keggers and the weed. And I think it started to spiral senior year when my friends brought it to my attention.
In high school, we were doing mushrooms and acid a lot, you know. And then that kind of died out. I've always taken pills, like Vicodins and stuff like that, because I heard I have bad back problems and stuff like that. I've always taken them. In Valiums, you know, I like to feel a little loopy, or Xanax, you know, stuff like that. You know, it's just, once you start doing stuff and you feel you just always want to get high, you know what I mean? You like that feeling. So I've always done pills, smoked weed. Got to be 18, I did my first line of cocaine.
And I'm walking by the back hallway during lunchtime one time because kids were allowed to sit in the hallways having their lunch. And I walked by this kid and I stood there and I looked at him and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. He had a straw and he was snorting this Adderall or whatever it was that he had chopped up off the carpet. He was snorting it off the carpet, not off a book or a piece of paper, but right off the carpet. I couldn't believe it. You know, you want to say to the kid, hey, put a book underneath that, but you can't say that to him. But I'm thinking, my God, are you that goofed up?
You know, I was constantly had to be on something. Started to dabble with acid. I want to say it was my junior year, apparently, and I don't have full recollection of what had happened that day. But I know I took 2 bladder hits before school. And at some point of the day, woke up in my principal's office. And I just remember looking at him and so confused. Apparently the janitor had found me rolling around in the leaves in the front of the school. Coincidentally enough, it happened to be the day I was having my senior pictures taken. My mother had to leave work, come get me, and when you look at all my senior pictures, my pupils are just...
Embarrassing in front of all! Oh my God! Oh my God!
I sold this one guy some cocaine, and he showed me how to cook it up because he smoked it. And after I did that, it was a wrap, you know. I started to really progress into that, you know, losing my weed sales and spending all the money that I made. And, you know, I've been blessed with a good job too. You know, I'm a union roofer down in Detroit. You know, I make $29 an hour, so all that money, you know, I just kept wanting to get high and high and high, you know.
You got that shit?
What's up, Don?
You got that shit, bro? I got $3. Where's that? Oh, I gotta go back for my $3. Oh, you wouldn't believe what happened, dude. This chick, right? There was this dude, and then there was this chick, and then there was this pipe, and then it broke, and then we ran, and then went to CVS, and there was security everywhere, and I hit this guy, and they hit me, and I hit him, and he called the cops, and they came, and they let me go. You got that shit?
In high school, I was already like doing coke really, really bad. I would sneak out. I would go to school during the day. I'd go in the front door, go out the back, and go sleep in somebody's car in the parking lot because I was sneaking out at night to go to parties and do coke. And coke was my drug of choice at that time. And then I got introduced to cooking it. And I started smoking crack. And I smoked crack for 10 years.
Oh no! I think if I'm honest, I say we'll work for crack.
You make babies like Aunt Jemima makes biscuits. Now get angry about that.
The schools fell on hard times. They didn't have the money that was usually coming in, and all of a sudden the DARE program got put on the side, and the police department picked it up and continued it, and then it's just kind of petered out, I guess you would say.
And teach your kids to protect themselves. Help take a bite out of crime.
All right, well, it turns out that this law-loving bloodhound has been up to no good, or at least the actor who plays him anyway. While McGruff takes a bite out of crimes like illegal drugs, actor John Morales apparently does not. Morales has been sentenced to 16 years in prison after pleading guilty today to possessing drugs and ammunition. Police found, get this, 1,000 marijuana plants in his house, along with 27 weapons, including a grenade launcher and 9,000 rounds of ammunition.
By Thanksgiving and by Christmas, we've pretty much weeded out the kids that aren't here to get their full education. I say we, the school does it. I'm a police officer, and I don't have anything to do with getting rid of kids or anything like that, but obviously I know what's going on with these kids.
I don't think it was ever about experimenting for me. It was more about escape, because I always wanted to push the envelope. I always wanted to do more. Like, I've had psychiatrists tell me, I think it was like 7 hits of acid and you're clinically insane. Well, holy hell, I do 7 hits at one time, you know, numerous hits of ecstasy. Like, it was always about taking it to the extreme for me.
We're going to try to make schools as safe as we can. So if you're going to do these things on school grounds, your punishment doubles. Does that scare some kids? Yeah, maybe, maybe not. But when I give this lecture and tell them this is it, listen, just take your drugs off school. I don't want them here. And we're pretty good at it.
We gave him a bath this morning. By his sophomore year, he was doing a lot of drinking. I know he smoked pot a lot. And by the time that he had a driver's license, he was doing some pretty heavy drugs. I know that by the time he graduated high school, which he graduated a year late, things were very bad for him. There was a period of time, I'm not sure how far after high school, a couple years after high school, where he literally like put his truck in the river, in the Saginaw River. He used to go down to one of the boat launches and park, and he misjudged it one day, and he called me from 7-Eleven, and I get there, I couldn't even figure out what he had done, you know. But at that point there were pills, and there was pot, and there was drinking, and he would sometimes like get me pills and stuff. And one day he said, well, I've got something that'll make it feel better. He said, give me, I don't know, give me $20. And so I gave him the $20, and he returned with heroin.
So he comes back with heroin, $20 worth, probably really easy to get.
Yeah, he wasn't going long.
And you look at it. Had you ever injected something up until this point? Okay.
No.
And
I was a little freaked out. And God, it's so crazy to remember these moments in life. He had a buddy with him, and I watched them do it first. And then he did it for me. He injected it for me. But at that moment, I thought I'd found my answer.
We know alcohol's always been around, but marijuana is a substance, and now we're seeing heroin, particularly in our area, as becoming even more of a problem.
When I talk to the kids, I just don't understand, why did you bring it to school? I mean, it's bad enough that I'm going to prosecute you for this, but now you lost your education. Now you can't go to school with all your friends anymore.
I will never be healed. There is no magical, you're cured from addiction. I'll be an addict the rest of my life, but it's, do I choose to live in active addiction or active recovery? And that's what makes me like myself. That and the fact that nobody that knew me on the streets would say she's gonna make it.
The problem that I have with drugs in school, and it usually starts at the younger age, at the middle school age, and people go, oh, it's pot or it's alcohol and stuff like that. I start out with, it's a cigarette.
Yeah, pal, and you've earned yourself a Winston. Yeah, Winston.
Cigarette smoking appears to have a stronger correlation with the gateway drug into other substances versus marijuana. Because there's a lot of kids that I've worked with over the years that were using marijuana for a variety of different reasons, but never transcended over into the harder drugs, such as cocaine or heroin.
The parties, they were called trash can parties, or they would get a fruit bowl or something, and everybody would throw a bunch of pills in a fruit bowl. You don't know what you're taking. And there was a lot of kids that would just think nothing of it, and let's take these pills and stuff. Well, where did you get the pills? I got the pills from my parents' medicine cabinet. It used to be, we'd put our pills, we never thought of it. I never thought of taking my mom or dad's pain pills for whatever they were taking them for. Never crossed my mind. Well, somewhere somebody got the idea, hey, let's take some of these Vicodin, let's take some of these pills, and wow, they really make you feel good.
Oh, shit!
Iraq is a very important part of securing the homeland, and it's a very important part of helping change the Middle East into a part of the world that will not serve as a threat.
You lie in a casket, and then members of the Skull and Bones on campus at time will walk past the casket and urinate on you and defecate on you. You're also then expected to have anal sex. Any member of Skull and Bones, they'll have to insert their penis into your anus. George Bush had over 100 men insert their penis in his anus.
Am I hurting you?
A little bit, but
Sorry.
It's expected. I mean,
$13 and a half by 8 and a half.
have to say there's going to be people that disagree. So, you know, I mean, they might agree with certain things, they might disagree with other things, but I think just putting anything as a needle in my vein just makes me feel more susceptible to being that much closer to being a real junkie, you know. I mean, I don't consider myself a junkie. I fucking got a good ass job. I fucking make pretty fucking good money. Do I still like to get high? Yeah. Am I ever gonna stop getting high? Probably not. Is it ever gonna affect me and my family? Never. Never again. It has before, but I've never was at a point in my life where I guess I'm pretty torn when it comes to talking about this, because shooting up just is a whole different, it puts you in a different kind of level, you know. It's like
You would never think of injecting heroin, right?
Oh, I have though.
You have?
Oh, absolutely.
What's the feeling like?
One of the best feelings in the world.
Really?
Absolutely.
How can you stay off of it then? I mean,
you gotta, you know, for me, how to stay off of it, you gotta think of what is more important to you in life than that feeling, because it's this warm feeling. It just floods your body, you know. It just goes through everything, and depending on how strong it is, but that's what I've compared it to. It's if you are having a shitty day, you shoot it, and then like within like a second, you just feel this warmth over your whole body, like every body, your whole body, you know. It's like, so I can eat 5, 6, 7, 8 Norcos, yeah, and I'll feel this, yeah, it's this good sensation, it feels great. Or I just blew some as the people call them, dillies. I blew some dillies and I feel good. But heroin, it comes across you just like your whole body, and it's this warmth, and it's this great feeling. Now, that's as long as you don't die.
VWXYZ. Now we know our ABCs. Next time.
Won't you sing with me? About the bumblebees?
Mm-hmm. It has it in our room. You want to watch it with us?
I would love to. Oh, maybe.
Not right now.
Not right now, but yeah.
Another time. I'm not kidding. I will clean up the same thing. It is insanity. It's the description of insanity. Clean up the same thing over and over and over and over and over. But they, you know, they're happy, and kids make messes. I definitely get overwhelmed and exhausted, but they do. They're so good. They really are. They're so good and smart. So we're not gonna watch TV.
I watch my own stuff.
You press this button.
Standing in the way, Mom. You're standing in the way. I can't see. I can't see it.
Yeah, on Lillian's 3rd birthday, that was my last drink. I had a whiskey drinker, so I actually had asked her dad to come over and pick her up, and I don't remember him taking her. I and that was it. I didn't get in trouble, but I could tell that that's where my life was headed, and I was just upset all the time, angry, depressed, because I was drinking a bottle of depressant every single day. I'd take a pull throughout the day, you know, but that was at the end where I would do it, you know, during the middle of the night if I was going to the bathroom or something, or first thing in the morning, even if I threw up, I'd try it again. Like, that's disgusting. It really is. And here, come here. I will get you.
Miles,
I always win.
Miles broke this.
Miles broke what? What is it? Oh, you broke her wand. We'll find another one. It's not very nice. I'll ask simple things like her favorite song when she was 3. She knew every single word. She's like, I never heard this before, Mommy. She doesn't remember even her favorite song. And she's never said, like, I definitely know he doesn't remember because he was less than one. Are you gonna say sorry? Are you gonna say you're sorry now? I used to have whiskey in my tea when I was, you know, an adolescent, because I would, you know, have to go sing the next day and have some sort of meltdown the night before. Come here. You wanna sit with me?
No. I want to sit with you, Mama.
He wants to see what you're doing.
Yeah, I think it's milk and chocolate.
But yeah, I actually had run over my guitar before. That didn't stop me. It's so insane. It really is insane when I think about it.
I still get drunk alone and throw a chair across the room, and nothing but cigarette.
My 30th was hard, and New Year's I was like more concerned about how I would feel once I got around alcohol, because my 30th is December 11th, so obviously I'm like, I had such a hard time on my birthday. Am I gonna have a hard time again? Working myself up, and then it was fine, and I had nothing. Ready? 1, 2. If you put them in here, wait. If you watch, remember, if you put them in here, then I can dump them on you. But if you throw them all over the room, I'm not picking them up. Slower. In there. Like the song, Bounce Back After Beating Myself Black and Blue. Literally would knock my own self out. Give my own self a black eye. Because I'm just so in my whiskey rage. That's where you get to. You will beat yourself up. You will hurt the people you love. No one trusts you again. You lose everything. She's just so beautiful, and I remember, I see me. So when I think of myself through that time, it's hard. I developed earlier, so I'm worried if she does that, because I was tortured, not just by boys, but the girls too. And being attractive, and then having a gift. She sings all the time, he sings all the time, they have it, you know, and she's definitely a natural performer.
See, I matched the Lelos.
How many?
1 Lelo, 2 Lelo, 3 Lelo, 4 Lelo.
Alright. Almost ready. Ready?
Yes, let's lay down. I'm gonna sit.
You're gonna sit?
I'm gonna lay down.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2. Don't kick him in the face. Stop.
I'm sorry.
That's what I was singing, Lillian. You can't.
I'm sorry.
I know.
Yeah, you just like me.
It's okay, dude. I know that nose hurts too, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It's sorry. She didn't mean to. It was an accident.
Maybe that's it.
And I was driving, and I hit a pole, and I flew out the front window and landed on my head.
Damn, show everybody what happened. God damn, that's crazy, though.
And this is how y'all boys come out. That's why it's no good. Drinking and driving, or drugness and driving, no good, kids. No good.
I don't care what anyone says, alcohol is the worst addiction out there. I know very few people that were alcoholics and that stopped and straightened up their lives. Most of them eventually pass away. And my brother, me and him were closer than any two brothers, and he finally was throwing up blood, and so we took him to the hospital and was there for 90 days, and he came out and quit drinking completely. A lot of that was because he was on probation at the time, and he quit drinking, but after 2 years, no drinking, nothing, just, I thought he was going to make it, Luke, but instead he went back to alcohol. And the doctors, I was there when they told him, they says, if you drink one beer, Mark, it's going to kill you.
Okay, now, Walt, you've had your little joke. Give her to somebody else. I ask for a man.
We don't have a man with her qualifications.
Seriously, Brad, if you treat her right, she might make you a darn good employee. What do you mean, treat her right? Get that chip off your shoulder. What's wrong with her? She's a woman, isn't she?
I declare the blood of Jesus against you faggots, you lesbos, you perverts, you sick-minded people. You are sick. You are demon-possessed.
And guess what, guys? The Taliban had banned and almost completely eradicated opium in Afghanistan shortly before the U.S. invaded. Just look at these headlines. The corporate media was even lauding the Taliban's success. Fast forward to today, where over 90% of the world's heroin originates from the war-torn country. According to a report from the UN Office on Drugs and Crime, this year saw opium production surge to a record high. The report said that the harvest this May resulted in 5,500 metric tons of opium, 49% higher than last year, and more than the combined output of the rest of the world.
My personal opinion is that stigma kills as many people as the drugs do. Because the stigma, because people can't say this is what I'm doing. People can't say, even when we know we need help. Who do we tell we need help to? Because anybody that we say, you know, I'm doing this, I'm scared, I can't do this anymore, I need help. That's why so many end up in the court system, is because until they get caught, so to speak, until they face consequences of legal nature, yeah, they just keep going because that stigma, you know, our families are ashamed of us, so our families don't reach out because they don't know what to do with us.
I guess just again of getting rid of that stigma of like somebody that does heroin or cocaine or whatever their drug of choice is, like, you know, being a piece of shit, as if somebody's gonna walk in your house and fucking steal all your jewelry or your money and shit like that. It's not the case. You know, like I said, 5 years with me and nobody fucking knew. And it's not like I walked into people's houses and their shit was missing. So they had no way to know until I fucking got caught or said something.
He knew how to hide it very well. Like most addicts hide it very well. If I could tell him anything, that I love him, that there was a way out, there was help, no matter what happened. That unconditional love, I'm gonna love you where you're at, whatever you're on, whatever you're doing, I'm gonna love you where you're at, because that's what needs to happen. We need to stop judging people. We need to love people for where they're at in their life and understand their difficulties and work through it with them.
I couldn't face the reality that I was still alive and he was gone. He said, I know I can't replace your son, but when you need a son, I'll be there for you. And for the next year he was. He would call and check on me at 3 in the morning. He would show up at my house on Christmas Eve. He would call me almost daily. He would invite me over. I would watch movies with him. He would cook for me. He would send food home with me. And 13 months later, he died. He overdosed.
Give us Barabbas. But what must I do with Jesus? They said, crucify him. Crucify him. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. Give us Barabbas. Crucify man. It was a grave mistake. It was the biggest mistake they've ever made.
The community here is amazing, and they definitely welcome me. I feel normal. You know what I mean? I graduated high school. I went to college. I went to CMU, and pretty much partied the whole time. I didn't get into opiates quite yet. I was doing Adderall all day, all night, ecstasy, hallucinogens, cocaine, stuff like that. I ended up failing out of college. I liked Adderall way too much. I would buy people's whole prescriptions and stay up for days at a time and sleep for days at a time. I knew that I was a drug addict at that point. I was like, everyone else can take one and just do their homework assignment, and I need your whole script, But then I dropped out. I withdrew from all my classes. I was failing. I hated myself. My mom put herself through college. She had me when she was 18 and got her master's degree while I was growing up, So I was like, my mom really valued education, and I felt like a piece of shit. I was like, I hate myself. I'm a failure. How could I have done this, Why can't I just get it together? Moved back to Saginaw and just started drinking, going to bars. And one day we were listening to Blind Melon, the lead singer OD'd or whatever, and we were just drunk. We should try heroin. And so the next day, I called this guy that I knew that did drugs in high school, and all he could get was Oxy. So we bought an Oxy and did it. And at that point, once I did the Oxy, I'm like, oh, I don't hate my life anymore. Things are actually okay.
Contrary to how a lot of people think, you hear about this guy ODing, right? And that makes you want to try that.
Yeah.
Explain that to me.
'Cause it's good shit. And then eventually I saw people shooting it up. And when I snorted it, I had to wait 20 minutes to feel the effects, or however many minutes snorting. And I saw people shooting it up, and they're high instantly, and I'm like, I need to do that. I need to feel like that now, the instant gratification of my brain. There's dope out of a spoon. There's a little residue left, and someone had a rinse, and you push water in and rinse it out. All the dope residue that's left, I guess. So I didn't even really get high the first time I shot up, but I was like, oh, that wasn't so bad, so I didn't really feel high, but I was like, needle's not that scary. So yeah, I eventually shot up Oxy, and it was amazing, mind-blowing. It's like Vicodin times 100, floating in a cloud warm pool of bliss your first time. Second time, maybe 85% of that, and then it's just progressive. So then you need more and more and more and more. And then Oxys obviously are hard to come by. They made them gel up now, so you can't really shoot them up. So heroin, cheaper. Plus Oxys were $80 a pill, $1 a milligram. So so me and Russ were like, well, we're gonna try heroin, and we're just gonna snort it, And he was an alcoholic, so really he would get high, but it wasn't his favorite thing to do. He was on unemployment, so neither of us were working. So I knew that if I went to White's bar with him and let him have a couple drinks, then I could take him to the ATM. And he'd buy me drugs. Manipulation of men early on, in my using people. We got robbed. We were living at this guy's house who was on parole, and he was at the methadone clinic, and we got robbed there, and we had to move back in with my mom. And then I pulled my mom right into addiction with me, and she got a Xanax prescription. And like my life was just, like they say in Narcotics Anonymous, unmanageable as fuck.
Selling yourself or prostitute yourself out, or was that about the attention more so, or was that a means to get money to again be able to not out on something?
See, I can't even really comprehend what you're saying, because all I can think is that he lives right down there, like on Sauk. And it just breaks my heart that he would have to watch this video.
You'd feel sad for him?
Embarrassed for him.
What about yourself, though? I mean, you've struggled through all this time. You've lived life on your own skin.
I guess I'm always trying to save everyone else's face, you know. 'Cause rarely do I put myself first, you know? Like, I'm just learning that now. It's an inside job. No treatment center can fix you. No year-long rehab center can fix you. Jail can't fix you. Prison can't fix you. I've met the enemy, and the enemy is me.
All rise, please. The Circuit Court for the County of Saginaw is now in session. The Honorable Janet M. Bose presiding. Please be seated.
You don't come into drug treatment court unless you have a serious addiction and you've got a serious criminal record that would make us think that you're high risk to commit crime again. So the success is not just with getting people off drugs, it's getting them out of the criminal behaviors that brought them into the system in the first place. There's a number of things going on here. There's the use of the kratom, there's the whole honesty issue that we talked about. The Vivitrol thing, you've got to, I don't think you've been honest about that too. And that's one of my other concerns is, my understanding is that Ms. Doucette and or Jennifer spoke to you about the Vivitrol and asked if you were, when was your next shot, that sort of thing, and you acted like you were still on it. A couple of people had tested positive for use of substances that are not allowed in the program. They aren't necessarily illegal substances, but they're substances that would lead people to getting a high. So both people had used kratom. One person had also used a drug known as Wellbutrin that people use for legitimately, but she didn't have a prescription for it. And she wasn't using it for any legitimate reason. She was usually using it to get a high or an effect from it. So they know that they're not allowed to use anything that isn't on a approved list. They know specifically kratom is one of those banned substances in terms of drug treatment court, and it's a synthetic type of substance. You tell me why you think you're here.
I'm here because of a drop 30 for kratom and Wellbutrin.
And what happened? Everybody that's in the program is subject to periodic testing. Then we bring them in right away and we say, look, you tested positive, you know that's not part of the program. What do you have to say about that? What should we do about that? What can we do to help you continue in this program and be successful? Because this is going to throw you off. And so we deal with why they did it, what they did, what they need to do differently, and we usually put some more restrictions on them so we know that they're in a situation where they won't be using it again, and then we work on whatever it is that caused them to use it. I think what's important is for everybody to understand that, yeah, there's, you know, an addict is not necessarily somebody that's just a weak person and you know, they're just somebody that we should look down on. That it is a kind of an illness. It is something that can occur to a lot of people and different people get into it in different ways. I talk about some people having really traumatic backgrounds and that leading them into drugs or criminal behavior or both.
I'm worried about when I see him, and hopefully we don't see each other on the street. This is his arrest record. That doesn't include driving offenses. And I said if he were black, he would have went to prison in the 90s. And I said if he was Mexican, he'd be deported. And if he was Muslim, he would have been fucking executed. He's white. He's never been to prison. He's never done more than a year in the county jail. There's the baseball bat, and there's the police scanner that was kept at our bedside. He carried it everywhere. It had a thing for on his belt. He always knew when the police were coming. Always. I was sleeping in bed, and he woke me up with a baseball bat, and the next morning, he literally, like, woke up, and actually, the look on his face, like he had no knowledge of what had happened, and he took me downstairs, and he washed me up, and I didn't leave the house for 2-3 weeks. We got married June 8th, 2004, and his trial for domestic violence started June 9th, 2004. And the laws in the state of Michigan, they can't force, like, a spouse to testify against a spouse. So I got married and got on the stand and told them that we were married and everything was okay, and they had to dismiss the charges. My husband didn't do anything wrong. We made too much noise. This guy, he's white. He's white. His mom had money, like his lawyers. Part of it was my fault. He didn't go to prison, but I'm trying now, I guess. I've even been called a snitch. I was told if I go testify him, I'll be a snitch. I'm exhausted.
What needs to happen for you in the next year or 6 months for you to just be in a good place? Because it sounds like even though you're holding everything together, it is taking a toll on you.
I don't know. As far as my family right now, I told my husband if they're gonna take him, I hope they hurry. Like, we need things and we need to do things here, but it's kind of pointless to go buy a new vehicle and make a car payment when we can't take it to Mexico if we have to move. We need house repairs, and I don't see any point in putting thousands of dollars into repairing your house when you're not going to be living in it. Or I wish they'd tell him he can stay. I wish, like, I don't know. I can't go on vacation this year. I'm scared to leave Saginaw County. Him, this, I don't know. I'm hoping this will put him in prison, and it's gonna close that book, that all the coulda, shoulda, wouldas. If I would have put him in prison a long time ago, he's already been through 2 or 3 girls. I would probably save them a lot of heartache.
Is there any guilt that comes with that?
All the time. Because he's gonna kill somebody. He's tried. He almost has.
When I was first homeless, I met a kid, and he went by E. And this is the street that I used to buy crack from before I ended up being held in that motel room. And there used to be a house right here. Brings back a lot of memories for me.
This house up here on the left was actually one of the first houses, abandoned houses that I lived in. I recalled it being white back in the day, but it's green now apparently. Actually, this was also the first place that I had ever smoked crack straight without weed.
In the sky, asking one why.
That's what I was talking about right there.
I wanna condone raindrops in the sky, asking one why. Don't fall.
I wonder if I could open the door. Is that wrong? Oh, the door's already open. Look at that. Doesn't look like anybody's here either. There's no footprints. I feel like I'm kind of shaking and it's not because I'm cold. It's kind of indescribable. You know, I feel this like urge, like I kind of want to cry, but there's not really anything to cry about.
How many people lived here when you lived here?
Probably between 6 and 10. A place like this should be preserved and immortalized in like a museum somewhere so that people can see and be able to actually walk in and feel what like an abandoned house, feels like, because this is literally like an artifact from my past. I feel like I excavated this, like I dug it up and like a archaeologist or something, and to think of all the things that you would find in those piles. I mean, I'm sure there's needles and razor blades and toys and bottles that used to have milk in them, and there's like a whole life in this house. I don't think they'll mind if I take this. And a lot of people don't really understand the fact that when someone's luring you into sex trafficking, they don't exactly tell you that that's what they're about to do to you. After I was at my friend's house and her friend brought me to this guy, it was actually a house in Southfield. And when I walked in, there was another guy behind the door, and that guy stood in front of the door when I walked in so that I couldn't turn around and leave. And he actually walked out from this person that I'm referring to. I don't use his name because I don't know his name, other than what he told me to call him, and I would never. But he walked out from the back room, and he looked at me, and he looked me up and down, and he had this really like twisted look on his face, and he just looked me up and down, and he said, "Yeah, you'll be all right." And I was like, all right, for what? Like, I didn't understand, And he said, "What's your name?" And I said, "My name's Misty." And he says, "Okay, well, you can just call me Daddy." And all of a sudden it just became clear to me, like in that one instant, like something really fucked up was about to happen. That particular day, when I was standing in his living room, I heard a girl in the back, like she was kind of like moaning, like, I guess I interpreted it as she was in pain, and she was trying to walk from the back of the house into the, into the living room where we were, and he just, stopped talking, and he looked at me, and, I'll never, forget the look on his face, and he just went, and he turned around, and he walked around that corner, and grabbed that girl. I mean, I could hear him physically grab her up, and he drug her back into the bedroom. And, probably in the 5 minutes that passed, the guy that was standing in front of the door had started talking to me and asking me questions about where I was from, and, and I was just like, what the hell is going on here? And so, about 5 minutes later, this guy who had introduced himself to me before he left the room, he walked back out of that area and his pants were unzipped and he was zipping them up like he had just fucked her. You should never forget, the experiences that you've had, even if they're painful. There's certain things that you have to take with you. There's certain pain that you will experience that you can't just make go away, and so you have to process it and you have to be able to, carry it somewhat lovingly. And, that's a situation that I don't see as any different. I think the most emotional, part was when I went and I got those, I got the piece of the wall and that piece of glass.
I already put the worst parts of me out there, so.
You were beaten up and you were raped?
Yes.
And do you remember much of it, or is?
I don't remember nothing.
But you were in critical condition.
Oh, I was in a coma for a month.
In a coma for a month. And when you came out of that coma,
I went for therapy to another hospital for another 2 weeks, I think. And then that was a traumatic experience for my kids.
6 weeks later, my mom came out of a coma, ended up coming home. I remember I was in 6th grade when she actually had like a trial day to come home. I remember it was the first time I skipped school, and I sat up here in the attic and listened to my mom and my dad come home for probably about 3 or 4 hours.
The same night I went in, I had a brain surgery. 2 days later, I had another brain surgery. My husband asked the doctor, Dr. Fields. He said, "Doctor, she's got family in Greece. Should I call him? Should I let him know?" And he said, "If I was you, I would." He wasn't expecting me to survive.
Just to kind of see what was going on with her, see if her memory was still there. And it was, luckily.
So one of the kids, I don't know which one, he said, "Come on, Dad, let's go see Mom." He tells him, "That's your mother." My kids didn't recognize me. I would hold my hand, He said, "This is your mother." And they started crying. They said, "No, that's not our mother." He said, "That's your mother."
No, I know I'm not. She's like, I am forgotten. I remember my kitchen, she loves to cook, so.
They think that I was beat with a baseball bat. So, but the thing is, the guy that done it and the prosecutor were buddy. So he covered everything. He said that he hit me with a car. The doctor in the hospital said there's no way he can hit you with a car and stop not to slash your head. No way on earth. When he was younger, I found out he was smoking marijuana. I said, "Yorgo," that's George in Greek. I said, "You stop the baloney. You don't need marijuana." It's nothing, it's not. I said, "Yes, that's how you start, and that's how you end up." He said, "No, marijuana, it's nothing." Look at him now. Look at him now.
I would use with my kids in the car, but knowing it's like a sick ability. I know that a line of heroin like that's gonna set me off. So if I've got my kids in the car, I'm doing a little something like that just to kind of get the touch of it, so to speak. Instead of getting that big old feeling. It's once I get home, I know there's some other people around, I can go tuck away and do what the fuck I want to do. And if I pass out, I pass out.
Sometimes he goes downstairs and he stays, and I'm worried. I go down there to make sure he's okay.
It scares me every day because I know it's still a battle for him. Makes life hard. Definitely challenging at times.
I'm afraid. Go down there and find him dead. There's nothing worse for a parent to bury a child. And I see those kids, they got cancer and they fight it and I look at him and I said, why?
Look at that, he's fighting for his life, and you taking your life. That's stupid, just plain stupid. I don't know, he took a lot out of me. When I found out, it took a lot out of me. And I told him, I will kill myself. I'm not gonna bury him.
How much of him is the same person he was in high school, and how much is different? Now that he hasn't been using for a while, do you see sparks of him light up a little more, smile a little more, be a little more attentive?
No. He was much better before he started doing those things. He was a happy child. He was the life of my family here. He always makes us laugh.
I feel it dulls my personality. I also feel that, like, even the comedy, like, I haven't been doing much of any stand-up right now, but just naturally a funny and witty person, I feel it takes away from that as well. You know, I do feel like a different person. Snap much easier, you know, you're depressed sometimes. And I mean, like, there's probably a depression even beforehand, but this just gives you that worthless feeling. You know, like you should be stuck under somebody's shoe.
One thing that I would say, I don't know why his fiancée, wife, whatever, stays with him.
What is your greatest fear?
Losing him. He's my world.
I told her, I said, you say the word, he's gonna be out of the house, you and the kids are gonna be in. Because those kids are his responsibility. He isn't doing it, I'll do it for him. Those kids don't deserve to grow up without a father. And I told him one time, I said, with what you're doing, your kids are gonna call somebody else daddy. Because you'll be gone. I said, do you want that? He said, no, we'll do something about it.
The fact that I have no using buddies, or friends really for that matter, nobody that I hang out with on a regular basis, and that's a scarier part for me, and I would imagine a scarier part for Tabitha too, knowing that I don't have to go hang with somebody to do this, as far as like, or even want to for that matter.
It's been an up and down roller coaster for me. I have my good days, I have my bad days. I can say I hate that there's been times where, you know, I felt like a single parent.
She basically walked in on me breaking up a line of heroin and grabbed her stuff, grabbed the kids, and took off.
Can you talk about the last time that you did heroin? Because we just met for lunch, right?
Yep. That was right before we met for lunch.
And right now, what's going on with you as far as treatment and everything else?
I've what's the word I'm looking for? Rejoined DOT outpatient therapy. We'll be getting a prescription for Suboxones next week, and I signed a treatment contract, which, you know, the marijuana, the heroin, basically any drug has to stop. And of course, per my first drug test, which will be next week, you know, all these drugs are expected to be in my system, but the following drug tests, they need to see the drugs kind of like dwindling down and stopping, basically. Otherwise, the next step is residential treatment.
Michelle Obama looks like King Kong's baby sister. That woman's not beautiful. I mean, first of all, her upper lip looks like she's smelling her upper lip, and then the bottom one looks like she's got a dip of snuff in it. That's about the ugliest woman. I mean, if Whoopi Goldberg and Michelle Obama were in a beauty contest, Whoopi would win.
This is WNEM TV5 News at 6.
Well, a bill waiting for the governor's signature will allow anyone in the state of Michigan to report a drug overdose without the fear of ending up behind bars.
3 people have died from heroin overdose already this year.
An epidemic that is sweeping across the country and has carved out a firm foothold right here in mid-Michigan.
The drug is so powerful, it's used to tranquilize elephants.
We continue to follow a community battle with addiction tonight.
It is a deadly addition to an already potentially deadly heroin epidemic.
The heroin problem has been well documented, yet while awareness is up, some are wondering why there hasn't been better results.
I was going through my friends list trying to invite people to my son's birthday party, and
almost every 8th person on my friends list is dead. More than half of them probably from overdose.
And that's out of how many people?
1,250 so.
I was one of 3 kids coming in from the rain. I was one of 3 kids drowning out all my pain. We swallowed by the handful these pills and disdain. And I wonder when I will see you again. I was one of 3 kids coming in from the rain. I was one of 3 kids, but now to remain. When we buried poor Larry, we snorted cocaine. And I wonder when I will see you again.
Hello, Wakeman Funeral Home. Rodney speaking. Yes, visitation begins tonight at 4 o'clock and goes till 8. I can attest that I have witnessed on a number of occasions persons who have died because of the type of lifestyle that they've lived, whether it's being obese, well beyond the normal weight of an individual, someone who maybe has smoked their whole life. Drinking there's usually some solid signs of someone who's been drinking for many, many years. There have been cases that we've worked with that I will look at the body and say, this person had a rough life. Whatever that life was, their age does not match the look on their face. The age of their face looks a lot more than what their true age is. So based on that, I can tell that this person has gone through a lot in their life. Bad things. The one thing that I see very often is the families feel like they are the ones that failed when it comes to the death of their loved one who died of overdosing or was on drugs or other things. The families feel that it's because of their failure why that person has died. I think the fact that the families feel like they are the ones that failed when it was the other person who was actually doing the drugs, I think it's a natural element to it's all part of the love of that person. Okay, me loving my family means I will do anything that I can to help my family through a problem. I feel it's a natural element within their grief that they feel that they're responsible for what has happened, not for either providing the drugs or putting them into a position of them having those drugs, but that they themselves think that we just didn't do quite enough, or we didn't encourage quite enough for them to get through this.
I opened the door and he was on the floor. I freaked out. I screamed for his mom. I tried to roll him over as slowly as I could. God, it was so slow. I didn't want to do anything to hurt him. And I put my head on his chest and I didn't hear anything. So I started giving him CPR and pumping his stomach. I kept telling him, come back, come back. And he stopped breathing. His heart stopped, and the paramedics, and then the ambulance. Well, when I went to the bathroom, I seen a spoon, I'm guessing it's a crack pipe. I don't know. His dad was a heart attack and head trauma.
Now there are two of us and we're still in pain. We drown in the bottle and say come what may. The reasons like the seasons, it comes and will change. And I wonder when I will see you again. There used to be two of us, and now I remain. And Jen lost her life shooting shit in her veins. She's buried next to Larry, and I still remain and wonder when I will see you again.
I've seen everything. I have 30-something people that were close friends of mine that are dead. Watch your head, it's not too high. For my age, I don't look like a addicted heroin addict. That shows you that it's not something that can hurt you bad, but it can kill you. And I almost died a few times. Just most recently, about 4 years ago, when they were putting that fentanyl in it. They were putting that fentanyl in the stuff, and I got some at one of my sisters, went in her bathroom for a sec to do it, because I was feeling sick, and I overdosed. She just knocked on the door, and I didn't say nothing, so she called the city police, and they got the paramedics there, and they have this new thing called Narconon. They put that in your system, and it removes all opiates out of your system. But the problem with that is it takes every bit of opium out of your system, so you're automatically feeling extreme withdrawals.
You're also probably then more susceptible to ODing the next time you use because you don't have a baseline anymore.
Absolutely. Alright, people use several different things. They call it a cooker. And they use several things. I find it best just to use a beer cap. But you have to check to make sure it's not one that has the little holes on the side where your stuff will spill out. I've seen, people use anything. The newest thing was they were taking aluminum beer cans or pop cans and cutting the end off and putting their stuff in there and cooking it up. They say cook it up, but you're just warming it up to kill any bacteria. If you don't, they will get sick. See, I got this earlier, and most people wouldn't get this amount. They'd give them just a little bit, but this guy I'm with, I've been with him quite a while, and he takes care of me good, so. He probably gave me $1 gram, and I gave him $100. Like that right there, I could sell for $70. Yeah, easily. And I've done probably half of this.
How do you measure when you're taking this? I mean, you've already tried this batch, right?
Yes.
So
I just do it by eye. doing it so long, but every time you get some new stuff, to be safe, you want to start out with a smaller amount to keep from overdosing. Because no matter how high your tolerance is, this will be the last that I do for the day. And I'm saving a little for the morning.
And that's in a lotto ticket.
Yeah, I'll save it. And those are something used very often is the lottery tickets. The losers, they work perfectly, you know, to put your leavings in.
And what is that?
That's a little more than 40 milligrams of water. Yeah, I know you mentioned some people that you once knew that are no longer with us. I had the same problem. The person that I started doing this with, he committed suicide, and that bothers me still to this day.
Do you feel like you could have saved them in some way, or what bothers you about that?
We were kind of close. You know, he was just a really good friend, and he was a little older than me, so he was like a big brother. And I really miss him. He was a good guy. You know, my parents may not think so, because he was doing this stuff with me, but he was a good man. Okay, do that. And take the arrow. This could be sharper. I usually buy a box of 100 because they no longer want to sell 10 packs.
And these are old used ones, right?
I've used them all once. You're supposed to use once and throw away, but I gotta go to Walmart or something and pick up a box. I have 2 empty boxes there. Have you ever seen anyone do this?
Not in person, no, I have not.
Actually, look, this is only one of several ways to get this into your circulatory system. You know, I'm not worse than someone that smokes it or snorts it. I'm no worse than them. It's just a quicker way to get it into my blood system.
Is there a taboo, do you think, in society where people think, oh, well, if you're using, you're injecting it in your veins, that must be your harder core than, for example, somebody who's just snorting it. Maybe they don't have a problem.
Yes, absolutely. They think, just like someone who drinks whiskey and someone who drinks beer, they think you're so much worse.
I never had no good invasions, but I had a few retreats. There were no stunning triumphs and a couple bad defeats. I never made no Hall of Fame, no pretty speeches on the stage. All I heard was, what's your problem? All I heard was, act your age.
When you hear that little squish, I don't know if you noticed it. There's a little squish you hear. When you hear that, you can be pretty sure that you hit a vein.
And what's happening to you right now? What are you feeling? Are you feeling anything?
Yeah, my shoulders and neck and head is feeling much more comfortable. This will not last too long. But if I hadn't done any today, it would feel so much better.
Now that amount that you just took, I'm a 230-pound guy, right? Mm-hmm. If I would have injected that myself, what would it more likely than not do to me? Let's say I was somebody who never took opiates.
It would kill you.
What you just took is a lethal dose.
Absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. Without a doubt, it would kill you.
It looks like there's a bit of a process, and you had a bit of a hard time actually getting it into your vein. Is it your vein that's hardened so much because of scar tissue, or, I mean, it seems like it'd be almost hard to do this if somebody was shaking and going through withdrawal.
Yes.
Said that I was perfect. I never wore a crown of thorns. I never wanted to upset you, but you felt like locking horns. So goodbye, farewell, my darling. I really truly wish you well. And when I reach eternal splendor, I'll smile and think of you in hell, half a saint and half a sinner. Well, you played both parts indeed, half a loser, half a winner. And you have the love I need.
This is a box of 100.
And while you sleep, I count the number of times that you breathe. And every 14th time your heart, it skips a beat. An arrhythmia I've found, you really should have that checked out. And I swear I'll love you my whole life long. Anywhere you go, I'll always come along. For better or for worse, you have my vow. And only death will part us now.
Oh, Lord have mercy. I think she got 3 other people in there with her, in those pantsuits that she's wearing. So, Hillary, take them people out your pantsuit. And she got all them big old thighs. Hillary, what's wrong with you, girl? What's wrong with you? She is one wretched looking... You know, you can't be president now, Hillary. No, God, no, Lord, no. No, you're too ugly now. Ugly, you're too ugly. But this half-white boy, this trashy bastard, won't even lift up his voice in defense of his mama. One of the lowest white women that ever walked the earth. That woman tried to get more black men on top of her than you could shake a stick at. Obama's mama. Hussy. Floozy. Low-life sack of white trash.
In the beginning of this film, Officer Koski shared a story about a bottle of vodka.
This was before Columbine. This was 4 years before Columbine, so there wasn't the school shooting things that were going on.
The reason I gave it to him was far more troubling and something I've been trying to forget for the last 20 years. Jim was my counselor, but when our insurance ran out, the prescription meds I was given, along with my own concoction of drugs and alcohol, led me to spin out. By the 10th grade, I had already amassed a couple assault rifles and, along with 2 other people, planned on carrying out a mass shooting at Heritage High School. I gave Officer Koski a bottle of vodka because I would have never fired back at him. I had already planned that he would have been the one to kill me in the 11th grade, and I was okay with that. At the time, It made perfect sense to me. The hardest thing to accept is that the summer in between didn't culminate with me having a come-to-Jesus moment. One guy got locked up, the other guy got killed, and someone simply met my price on the assault rifles. It was about business. I don't even like guns.
No.
But as long as I was going home and drinking myself into oblivion, I wasn't shooting up a school full of students. To those of you who wonder how drug money gets washed into legitimate business, all I can say is, thank you. This film was funded in large part from marijuana sales and contributions from the same drug dealers who have been poisoning this community for the past 15 years. I guess you are now part of the problem. I'm a retired military veteran. I drive a $1,200 car, and 6 years later I'm still fighting for benefits from the VA. I don't know if I'm an addict, but it certainly seems that it's in your and this government's best interest to keep me addicted to something.
It's hard for me to explain why that was the case. Just take my word for it.
The last 4 presidents have gotten us and kept us in a war that seems to no longer have clear objectives and goals, with a death toll much higher than anyone could have expected. And the dead are no longer just those who chose to serve in the military. This war is killing our youth, and it's going to continue killing our youth. And now that you know that you are part of the problem, I wonder how much you may be inspired to be a part of the solution. I guess if you are unwilling to talk about it, at least you are willing to listen. But I don't know if that's cool to do anymore.
What do you mean? Oh, wow, man. Hey, what was that shit, man? Me and my gal.
The chimes of time ring out the news. Another day is through. Someone slipped and fell. Was that someone you? You may have longed for added strength, your courage to renew. Do not be disheartened, for I've got news for you. It is no secret what Jah can do. What is done for others, He'll do for you. With His arms wide open, He'll pardon you. It is no secret what Jah can do. There is no night, for in His light you'll never walk alone. You'll always be at home. done for all.